Hi guys, and welcome to episode 4 of Live It Out series. We are going to be looking at the story of Moses today. So on Sunday we explored some of the story, but we're going to be looking at a different element of the story today.
We looked at on Sunday, I guess, the part in the beginning with the Pharaoh and plague and Moses asking the Pharaoh to let his people go, and so we looked into that in a little bit of depth, and hopefully that was helpful. But there was just one part at the beginning of that story that we just really wanted to kind of hone in on and speak about, and it was the chapter 3 when Moses meets God at the burning bush. So Jess, what did it speak to you about?
Yeah, so in specific, the burning bush is the time when God told Moses that it was his job to go and free the Israelites from slavery in Egypt. And it's quite a moment for Moses. And I think what really stood out to me was this is a calling that God has placed on his life. Obviously for Moses, this is a massive life-changing thing. He's going to have to gather people. He's going to have to go into Egypt. It's to free hundreds and hundreds of slaves. But for us, I think it can really speak to us and say, what is God placing on your life this week? Maybe just today, maybe this week. You don't need to pray to God and say, what's the calling on my whole life? You can if you'd like to, but we don't have to know all the answers if we trust in his plan. But for Moses, it's a big life-changing thing, but I think maybe a challenge for us to spend some time in prayer today and say, God, what is your calling for me to do this week? Is there someone I can help today? Could you highlight someone to me where I could go and I could help them?
Yeah, definitely. And I think something that stood out to me really was Moses' doubt in himself. Constantly when God's telling Moses the plan for his life, when God is instructing Moses on what to do, Moses constantly speaks back to God and says, I'm not good enough. Why pick me? Who am I to do this task for you? And it's just constant doubt, constant self-doubt in himself. And actually that's like us. Sometimes we don't feel good enough, do we? We don't feel good enough to do the things that God wants us to do. We don't always feel good enough even just to follow God. And we know we make mistakes and we know our weaknesses. And yet God has bigger plans and purposes for us than we have for ourselves. That actually, despite our weaknesses, despite the things that we don't feel good in, God gives us strength. God helps us to do those things, those impossible things that we don't see possible, that actually God makes up the difference. And so for us, that's an encouragement. Actually, when we feel rubbish and when we don't feel good enough, we know that God is with us, God is for us, God will give us strength, and that in him we can do the impossible. So hopefully that's been helpful for you. This week, on our social media channels and on the group chat, we're going to be posting specific parts of the story of Moses, just to give you little pointers of where to read. You don't have to stick with them. You can kind of go off and read extra bits if you want to. But we recognise that this is quite a big story. There's a lot to read. And so we just want to make it manageable. We want to make it easier for you guys to press into that. So we'll post every day just small sections that you can read over and that you can kind of think about and pray into. And hopefully that will help you study this story a little bit better. But we've had a great time. Hopefully this has been helpful for you, a little bit useful in pointing you in the right direction. But we will see you very, very soon.